whenever you are, Candace. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at 9:05 a.m. this morning. In the true spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge all those who call this land home now and for thousands of years in the past. May we respect each other and find understanding together and recognize the benefits that this land provides to all of us. Before you, you have a proposed agenda. I would propose 2 additions to the agenda. Under new business, Councillor Hickey has 2 items for discussion, one regarding signage and a second regarding travel out of the county to attend a conference. So if there are no other additions or deletions, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you, John. John has moved to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Before you, you have the County Council meeting minutes of January 15th, 2026. Are there any errors, omissions, any issues arising from the minutes as presented? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move to accept the meeting minutes of the January 15, 2026 County Council meeting.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved to approve the County Council meeting minutes January 15, 2026 as presented. If there is no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. If we move down in our agenda, we do have one time commitment this morning. We have a 10 a.m. public hearing. Without further ado, why don't we move down? Item D, subdivision applications. We have 2 subdivision applications before us this morning. D1, subdivision application 2025-0186, Spencer Domenic Construction.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. So there's 2 subdivision applications before you for consideration as the subdivision authority today. So the first application is 2025-0-186. It is on Lot 4, Block 1, Plan 0914119. In terms of its location, so it is located 3 miles southeast of the city of Lethbridge border, 1 mile west of Highway 4, and immediately south of Highway 508. The intention of the subdivision application is to subdivide 1.5 acres from the 153 acre title and consolidate that 1.5 acres with an existing 1.5 acre title, so creating a 3 acre title. And with that, I will pass it on to Steve for his recommendations.
Good morning. So this application in front of you is for a subdivision and consolidation to enlarge an existing lot. The owner has an existing 1.5 acre lot that was created back in 2009. At that time when the county, under previous land use bylaw, had a minimum 1 acre parcel size. And in the current land use bylaw, the minimum parcel size is 2 acres. So the enlargement that they're proposing will bring the existing lot into the current bylaw compliance, and that'll meet the minimum, but in the end it also will not exceed 3 acres in size. So the area of land subject of this subdivision consolidation is just a rectangular portion to the south of the existing lot. They're lining up on the west side with the boundary of the current lots that are there. By doing this subdivision consolidation, it basically doubles the size to the 3 acres. The land area is vacant other than a grain bin on there. It's situated outside the irrigation pivot on the adjacent agricultural title, the title that's being subdivided from, and so it won't affect the agricultural activities on that land. So these two titles are owned by two different landowners, so they've entered into agreement to do this amongst themselves. There's no existing services that will be affected by the boundary adjustment. Both parcels, and in the end with the consolidation, will still have its existing direct access from the West Municipal Road allowance, which is Range Road 205. And looking at some of the provincial land use issues that we're required to investigate, there's no historic resources that are affected, no identified wetlands, environmental significant lands, or that sort of things that affect the subdivision. The quarter section does have an abandoned gas well and a pipeline through the quarter section, but that's over on the towards the west side, and it's not in the proximity of the acreage lot here or the area that we're subdividing, so it'll be unaffected by that. So as part of the application, due to the proximity there to 508, Alberta Transportation is a required both referral and an approval. So Alberta Transportation has no concerns with what they're proposing and no objections to it, so they authorize that the county may proceed to approve if you see fit. During the circulation, there was no objections or concerns by any of the utility companies or any requests for easements. On the notification, there was a couple landowners who did write in that they did express some concerns with the parcel that would be used for commercial business activity. But that is something that is, if it were to occur, is dealt with the counties through the development permit process and not the subdivision itself. So if they do decide to do something in the future, they'd have to come forward to the county for the permits at that time and see if it was something that was permissible or not. So in looking at this application, the recommendation is to approve. As mentioned, the configuration will increase the size of the parcel. That will now be in compliance with your current minimum standards, as well. The parcel size itself at the 3 acres does not exceed maximum parcel size, so it does fully conform and comply with land use bylaw subdivision criteria. This subdivision is allowable under the realignment, reconfiguration, and titles policy. It will be consolidated to the existing lot and will not be a standalone title in the end. So one of the things on an approval with this application as well is that if approved, they would have to pay a municipal reserve payment to the county on the 1.5 acres that's being subdivided and consolidated. The existing lot, as well as the neighbors' lots to the north there, when these are subdivided, at that time had to provide the municipal reserve payment to the county. Now, because this would be removed from the agricultural portion and add to the title, adjustment would be made there, and they would have to pay the reserve payment on that 1.5 acres that's coming off, which the value came in at that at $15,000 per acre. So with that, the recommendation in front of you is to approve as applied for and presented, and that would be subject to the reserve payment made to the county, as along with the conditions that the taxes are paid up to date. The development agreement entered into if the county requires anything. And the third is the important condition that is done by plan of survey and consolidated to create a new lot, block, and plan number, so they can't re-subdivide that. And that the final plan be submitted that corresponds to any approval that you may grant here. When the package came out, we did have the fifth condition there for the easements by utility companies, but none of the utility companies have requested or require anything. So,
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Keelan. I'd open up to the council for any questions or discussion. John and then Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the reserve, the $15,000 per acre is not the reserve amount that needs to be paid, is it? Or is that just the value of the land?
That's the determined market value of the land.
Okay, so the reserve would be a percentage of that then?
Yeah, so it's the 15,000 on the 1.5 acres, and then they pay 10% of that to the county, so, yeah.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of questions that come to my mind. You say it's technically not a subdivision, but are you not only allowed one subdivision per quarter?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through Councillor Hickey's question. So it is a subdivision and consolidation. So you're subdividing off the agricultural land, but in the end, it's being consolidated to the existing title. So it's the same thing as what's referred to as a boundary line adjustment, where you move a property line over. In this case, their south lot boundary is being moved that distance. I can't remember how many meters it is. Is there to read it? To the south.
There's a 99 there and a 52.
So it'd be about
Yeah, it's the same size as the
54
lot.
years,
Yeah.
but, yeah, so, in the end, there's the same amount of titles that are there currently. Just the one's getting bigger, the one's getting smaller. It's kind of like a balloon pushing on it. The one's expanding and one's getting smaller, whatever, but, that existing lot in the end with the house on there, his boundary is getting just moved to the south. So that's the only process we have in Alberta to do these. There's not like down in the United States, they have sometimes separate boundary lot adjustments processes. But with land titles in Alberta here, we don't have that. So the only way to do this, to move a boundary, is through subdivision and consolidation. So,
And I fully understand that, but originally, there were 3 lots.
yeah.
And it was subdivided from that title. So I guess my question is how, I don't follow how you can still do it.
Well, in the-
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, in the end, there'll still be 3 lots.
I realize that, but
Yeah.
you're taking away from ag land, which we're supposedly protecting, because we only allow 1 subdivision per quarter. And you already have 3, but you're still taking away more. I don't follow how it's,
Through Mr. Chair to Councillor Hickey, I understand your following because like the just being conscious of the agricultural land, where our land use bylaw is right now as the subdivision authority making a decision today, there is provisions for these consolidations and realignment of properties. So there's exceptions to the rules when we're realigning properties. And because this is a existing house, they have a maximum parcel size of 3 acres, which I understand was established to conserve ag. But it's definitely a consideration of your decision, but the provisions in the land use bylaw today say property realignments are allowed.
Kaylin,
Yep.
how did we get here? There's that many lots out of that, I believe, section is how that is, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It happens over the change of land use bylaws. Rules have changed over time, which at some points municipalities allowed additional subdivisions out of ag titles. Our rules today are much more restricted. So we end up in a situation where land titles exist that do not comply. So the 1.5 acres does not comply today. That being said, if they were to build something, we would waiver that. So we have titles in the county do not align with the land use bylaw today, and they are considered non-conforming.
That'd be a historical.
Yeah,
those would be
historical bylaws
subdivisions
that
then.
existed.
Sorry, Lauren.
that's okay. So then the other lots, are they 3 acres each? Or,
This one definitely is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, just go back to the history there. So this area, there is some of the lots in this area, like to the north side and such, are zoned to group country residential. These lots here are older historical lots, if you want to call them that, approved under previous bylaw where they had the 1 acre minimum size. So the current lots that are there were done as resplits. So there was 2 lots that were resplit under the resplit policy. The county's policies have since changed then, where we now have that, where it's, if there's 3 or more contiguous lots, you have to apply to the group country zoning. These were created prior to that. So it was 2 lots that were there. 1 was resplit, so you ended up with the three current lots there. So that was done under the previous subdivision policies years back that allowed that and didn't have to go through the rezoning in creating that third lot, which nowadays you'd have to do. If you do more than the one resplit with the two lots, the third and more is where it kicks in for the group country, whatever like that. So this area, there is some across the road in that have done that, whatever, but this was created previously under the previous subdivision criteria of a previous bylaw. And at that time, they had the 1 acre minimum size. So these are, as Kaylin said, they're non-conforming lots because the current bylaw has the 2 acre minimum.
So can I just follow up? So then, by adding 1.5 acres, you're making it a conforming lot. So what's the story on the other two then, if they're not conforming? Like, how do they get to be conforming?
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. So there is nothing that triggers them to become conforming because they were subdivided at a time that the bylaw allowed. They stand to exist. If they were to redevelop, we would have to consider whether we're willing to waiver the bylaw. They're obviously landlocked from the north and south, so if they wanted additional land area, they would have to talk to the landowner that owns the majority of the quarter section. Does that make sense?
I guess it doesn't really solve the problem in my mind, because they could come back and say, well, we don't conform either, so we need to make ours bigger.
Yeah, and that's a personal landowner choice. Non-conforming buildings exist, non-conforming lots exist. Rules change over time.
Sorry. John, did you have something?
Yeah.
Just sort of on that same regard, and is there anything in our land use bylaw that would, or in provincial legislation, that would compel any non-conforming to become conforming? Sort of the way I look at it is land use bylaws change over time, and if we've done something in the past, just because we changed the land use bylaw doesn't necessarily mean that we can go back and say, well, you know, yes, we did this in the past, but it wasn't right, so you now have to change it. My thought process on it, correct, in maybe rightly or wrongly, would be it was done in the past and they have no desire to make any boundary changes, then it could sit there in perpetuity and not cause any issues with us as a municipality or the province or for the landowner for future sales. Would that be accurate?
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Kurbis, yes, you're completely accurate. Non-conforming lots, if they have no desire to change anything, they exist in perpetuity. This specific subdivision is being explored because they wanted to expand their lot, and the Lethbridge County Land Use Bylaw has provisions to allow lot line reconfigurations. That is specifically why this subdivision is being triggered, not because of any non-conforming relation.
So just a follow-up on that, if this was coming towards us where they said, hey, they wanted 10 acres, that would be outside of our land use bylaw regulations because it would exceed the parcel size, and then therefore it would be a different conversation because they would still remain non-conforming, but we would have to make an exception outside our land use bylaws then at that point, if we wanted to approve that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, each time the application comes, we're looking at the current policies that are in place, and there's obviously historical things on the land. So, if, let's say that subdivision was not there at all, and the other was there, let's say this was a yard there, and the guy came in and he wanted to apply for the yard. With an existing yard, you're allowed up to 10 acres, the way the current policy is right now, based on improvements present. So if he had more than the yard there and he had a dugout, tree shelter, belts, a shot bill, whatever, and it came in at 8 acres or 9 acres, 10 acres, whatever, your maximum parcel size in those scenarios is 10 acres they could take out based on an existing yard. So in this case here, he has an existing yard. He's obviously developed the 1.5 acres, and he's looking to add to that to the 3 acres, which is, if you look at your vacant parcel policy, if it was a vacant coming out, you would allow a maximum of 3 acres to establish a yard. So he's meeting the minimum threshold of what a current lot, if he was being created, if there's nothing there, but he's not exceeding your maximum either type of a thing. So One of the things I maybe add too, just on non-conforming, the Municipal Government Act has some specific rules, and in planning law in Alberta with the non-conforming. So there's kind of two components. One is like on a subdivision, if the lot's there, it is what it is. If it was older, it doesn't comply with current policy, they're still allowed to use, you can't compel them to change it or whatever. If they come in for development, the current bylaw rules apply. So usually, for example, in a rural area, we won't have a maximum site coverage. In a hamlet or something like that, we will, but they would be limited to those standards. If it said you're allowed, 60% site coverage or some of that on a smaller lot, if it was non-conforming, they would have a restriction on them. They would have a smaller building pocket. So with development, it's a different thing with non-conforming. So when there's buildings and stuff on there, if they don't conform with the bylaw, the Municipal Government Act says that if those buildings are damaged or destroyed beyond 75% by fire, flood, type of a thing, they can't replace them on the if it's non-conforming. It has to conform to the current bylaw in place. So there's some kind of more specific rules for development non-conforming in the Municipal Government Act. But on land, if the lot's there, it's a parcel, they have title to it, they have some development rights, and then when they come in for that development, the current bylaw is being applied for setbacks and coverage and that sort of thing. So it might limit what they can do on a smaller parcel, but you can't compel somebody to, enlarge their parcel if they're not willing to do so. And does that help a bit, or?
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. I was just going to, given what we've heard, move, but I'm going to get to the right spot, so I read the recommendation. Sorry about that. I'd like to move that subdivision application 2025-0-186 be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0186 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. The green bin removal shows up on the BOA sketch, but not on our conditions. Is that not a condition of us, or why is that noted?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's not a requirement for the subdivision because it's going to be inside the parcel, so it's not an issue subdivision-wise. That's their own personal thing between the two landowners that they're going to move it, but it doesn't affect any county policies or doesn't affect the subdivision itself.
Okay, thank you. When we look at that picture, we got the yellow dotted line all the way around. What does that signify versus having, the little parcel we're discussing? Is that a one landowner, or why does that line run right there?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the yellow dashed line around, that's just delineating the title, the one title that's being affected by the subdivision. And then the other one is just showing the area that's coming out to be added to the existing yard title on the north side there, so.
So currently what the subdivision we're working with is in the larger title.
Through Councillor Van Essen, so the larger dash line around the entire property, that is everything being considered under this subdivision application. Within that larger dash line, there's two current titles, this smaller house, 1.5 acres, and the large 53 acres, I think it is. So there's two titles within the large dash line. That is what is subject to your decision today. The decision before you is whether 1.5 acres is subdivided from the larger egg title to be consolidated with the single, the house, the smaller 1.5 acre title.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? John has moved the recommendation the subdivision application 2025-0-186 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. If there's nothing further, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Moving down, subdivision applications, item 2, subdivision application 2025-0-184. Kayla?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the subdivision application before you is 2025-0-184. It is in Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 181, 1654. So it is located a half a mile south of Park Lake Provincial Park and 2.5 miles north of the town of Colehurst. This proposed subdivision before you is to subdivide 4 acres and consolidate it to a vacant 2.99 acre parcel to enlarge the entire parcel to a 7 acre size for Bearland country residential use. And so with that, I will pass it on to Steve for the recommendations.
All right, Mr. Chair. So just to confuse you, we're going to swing the other way now, and we'll try to explain this here of the different scenario. So this application, which is just located about half mile south of Park Lake, the applicants have an existing 2.99, just about a 3 acre parcel in the southwest corner. That they received approval for back, I think it was 2017. They originally subdivided back in 2017 a vacant 2 acre parcel, that triangle, in that kind of dry land area. A year later, in 2018, they came back to the county and decided they wanted a little bit larger, so they applied and subdivided and consolidated 1 acre over. And enlarge that to the current existing 2.99 acres, which the county subdivision authority approved at that time in 2018 because it did conform with the criteria where it did not exceed the maximum 3 acre for a vacant parcel size. So it was kind of a process similar to the last one where they did the subdivision, the consolidation, enlarged the parcel, and now it's at the current 2.99. So over the years here, that parcel is still sitting vacant. No development or improvements have occurred on there since the original 2017 and now the 2018. So over the last 6 or 7 years, there's been no development on there. It's still a vacant parcel, no improvements. The current application now is they're coming back and they want to enlarge it a second time, and they want to increase it from the 2.9 acres up to the 7 acres in size. Now, in discussing the application with their agent on the reasons for that, they want a larger parcel, and they indicate that because there's a LNID pipeline on the west side of the quarter section line, that the LNID, they like further setback from the LNID pipeline, and the LNID agrees they would like a 30-meter setback from their pipeline. So they're in support, the LNID is in support of them enlarging it to try to get buildings and such further away from the pipeline on the west side. Now, as you can maybe see, Kaylin can zoom in a bit, but there used to be open canal, a ditch canal on that west side of the perimeter. That has been removed and a pipeline has been put in place. They already have a 30-meter gap there where that the existing vacant triangular parcel does not go all the way to the west quarter section line. There is a 30-meter space there where that canal used to be and where the pipeline is. The LNID has not yet registered a right-of-way for that pipeline. In talking to the surveyors at BOA, it's my understanding that they're undertaking that process to register that pipeline right-of-way for the LNID, which will run along the west perimeter of the quarter section there. That little strip, kind of where Kaylin has the arrow there, where it's showing it, that is right now a part of the title land to the residual agricultural piece of the rest of the quarter section. So the intent is that in the future, a pipeline right-of-way would be registered along that 30-meter wide strip of land. So the pipeline is not going through this parcel. The right-of-way won't be through the existing parcel. It's already outside to the west of the current vacant parcel, and it would be registered across the agricultural land. So with that, one of the things I guess to take note is that the LNE stipulates they want it to meet their 30-meter setback to the pipeline. Lethbridge, there is no 30-meter setback. That's like what the LND would like, but the county's bylaw and the setbacks apply. The county regulates the land use, and the applicant, the owner of that parcel, can put buildings or structures all the way up to 20 feet from the property line. There is no 30-meter setback in the county's land use bylaw for a setback to a pipeline. On the development side, if somebody came in on that parcel, if they purchased it, wanted to put buildings, as the county development office is processing that permit, somebody from a side yard property could go 20 feet away from that west property line. The intent with utility and right-of-way easements is that the area is protected what they need for a pipeline and to do their work and their disturbance and that sort of a thing. And typically, if they need more room, they register a wider utility right-of-way, but a 30-meter wide right-of-way is you would think is pretty sufficient. But anyways, there is no 30-meter setback in the county's bylaws that apply to a pipeline or a pipeline right-of-way. Even if you did approve the subdivision here and thought, well, there's some merit in that, and we're going to approve the 7 acres, if somebody came into the county later and applied to put buildings, the county can't make them go 30 meters away. They're allowed 20 feet from that west property line. So there's, so that's what would apply. So anyway, so this application is to enlarge. So the current parcel is in compliance with the bylaw for parcel size. The additional 4 acres or so they want to add here to bring it up to the 7 acres. That would require a waiver variance because it would exceed the maximum 3 acre of a vacant parcel size. Based on looking at the land and what's currently there and what was there in the past, and with there still being no improvements on there where there seems to be any restrictions present, the application as applied for doesn't comply with the subdivision policies and the bylaw in regards to the parcel sizes. So with that, this application, it can be viewed under the subdivision reconfiguration where you consolidate, taking one piece off to the other. The vacant parcel size on approval would have to be given for a waiver because it exceeds the 3 acres going to the 7 acres of land. The current land use bylaw 24-007 has for the vacant parcel, has to be a minimum 2 acres and not exceed the 3 acre parcel size, which obviously this doesn't align with that. During the circulation of this application, other than the comments received from the LNAD, there were no other comments, concerns, objections, that sort of a thing to the application. There was no easements requested at the time the agenda came out to you. We've since heard back from ACO and Fortis, but they have no concerns and they don't require anything if it was to be approved. So this application, based on the land use and the subdivision policies of the current land use bylaw, the recommendation is for a refusal on the application, and that would be for the reasons they're presented to you, that the enlargement proposal does not comply with the land use bylaw subdivision criteria and the maximum vacant bare land parcel size of 3 acres. The subdivision authority does not see the justification for a waiver of the county's land use bylaw, as the LND pipeline is not located on the subdivided title, and there's no easement present, and no development restriction on the current 2.99 acre parcel. Second, the former irrigation canal west of the 2.9 acre title boundary has been replaced with a pipe and is not part of that acreage. There will still be a 30.48 meter strip of land on the west side that encompasses that irrigation pipeline area. So any disturbances or work on that pipeline will occur on the neighboring piece of land and not on the acreage title. And there are no development setbacks or restrictions to that other than the bylaw's 20 feet. The third reason would be that the additional 4.01 acres of land removes additional agricultural land into the irrigation pivot there. It's a bit hard to maybe see in the photo, but where the green is, that pivot does extend into that area there on that side. And the fourth condition is that there was an approval grant, or reason I should say, is that approval was granted in 2017 to subdivide. A enlargement was already granted to increase it to the 2.99 acres, which conforms with the current land use bylaw and the maximum parcel sizes. And there's currently no improvements or development on the acreage that would restrict development or to site buildings on there. So the reasons are a bit wordy there with explaining. If you do refuse it, just in case they decide to appeal and it goes to the appeal board, they have a little bit of background understanding of what a refusal would be based on. I guess alternatively, if you saw merit in what they're doing to enlarge that size, on any approval, you would have to grant a variance or waiver of the maximum parcel size, which the subdivision authority, you do have the jurisdiction, the power to do that. That would be subject to some conditions, but the recommendation in front of you to be consistent with the bylaw is to refuse the application that's applied for.
Thank you very much, Steve. I would open it up to council for any questions.
Oh, I'm not sure what I missed, but
Eric for the win.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So the access or the easement on, or not even an easement, the small sliver parcel on the west side of that property, that is the area where the LNID pipeline is, right? And that is 30 meters and change, right? When LNID, and you may not know the answer to this question, I'm not sure, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When LNID is looking for a easement or access for a pipeline, is there standard access for a pipeline 30 meters wide then?
Hey, Mr. Chair. Often they try to have that. It's kind of based on circumstance and the land and the area they have to work with, and if there's parcels, if there already boundaries there, sometimes they have to go lesser, 20 meters or whatever it might be. It seems consistently for the last number of years that they've been looking at 30 meters.
Okay. So, and that kind of answers my question, but nowhere are they asking for a setback of 30 meters from the pipeline then, normally, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you, let's see it here. The LNAD would like a 30-meter disturbance offset from the center of the pipeline, is what.
That's what they're asking
They're
for.
saying it's their requirement, but they can't really require that. The development is managed through Lethbridge County and through the county's bylaws on that. This has been a thing for years. That's, I know Hillary had a number of meetings over the years with the LNAD that they were asking for the 30-meter, basically 100-foot setback from canals. And then when they started putting in pipeline, they started asking for that for the pipelines as well. Years back, Lethbridge County, if there was enough room, it was a large parcel, would try to accommodate if it was a canal, in case there was a bit of seepage or something, just to be further off. But there's no setback or requirement in the county's land use bylaw saying you have to be 30 back. I say basically you can be 20 meters from the property line, 6.1 meters.
20 feet.
So that's LID's preference, their request. They say it's their requirement, but they can't go outside their jurisdiction rules stop at their canal right of way or registered plan, if it's a registered plan to the irrigation district like that. Anything on private land beyond that is under the county's bylaws, and the county regulates development. So it's a request, it's a like they have, but there's no criteria or policy for that the county is required to enforce. So,
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up on that, when I look at that they've asked for and gotten a 30-meter parcel of land to put the pipeline in, I would have had I have to surmise that when the subdivision was first approved, that was their original ask at the time, that they wanted this parcel of land to facilitate, any potential repairs on the pipeline and give them access to that. And now it seems like the narrative has changed a little bit, and saying, well, we would like 30 meters from the center of the pipeline, whether they're entitled to it or not. But not knowing where the pipeline is, it could be on one side of that particular access or another. We wouldn't know specifically where the center of the pipeline is anyway. And given that we've got a 20 feet setback for buildings, that works out to, I did the math on it, 6.9 meters. So we're actually talking apples to apples, because I'm old school and I understand feet, I understand meters, but in my brain computing them without a calculator is a little tough. So I just, I don't see the rationale of why they would be asking for that, which is why I asked my question, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things that came out of that and further to it. This was canal until very recently. So at the time, we had a setback bylaw. Last term, we got rid of that in our land use policy, that the setback to a canal right away, we pulled that out. So 3-4 years ago or so, roughly. So then the one question, which I believe we do not have an answer to right now, is did they try develop when we had a setback restriction in there to the canal or that? And that was a fairly large one. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a healthy waste. So that's just an anchor point. I guess this is to Steve. I see in our notes we did not get the LNID comments, and often we do. So we'll just point that we did not. We just have the reason that got put in there, but not their actual request. Then going up to the property line, yes, we can go 20 feet, but just because we can, does that make best practice? Yes, our bylaw allows it, but is it healthier and safer to be further away? Would you want your house right up against an open excavation? Would you want landscaping? Whatever, should something go wrong? Then finally, a question. What happens if they come to us for a resplit on this? Let's say it gets permitted on the larger size. Can we restrict the resplit?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you would have to, if you approve you're asking if you approve the 7 acres and they came back to do a resplit, can you restrict that in the future? Is that the question?
Yes, that's the question.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. You have to take that application at that time at face value and look at it. And if it makes sense, if they meet setbacks, there's a building pocket, septic's acceptable, can work on both. There is a policy for a resplit. So when that comes in, we'd be looking at those technical aspects, and then it would come to you here for you as the subdivision authority sitting to see if it makes sense or not, whether you were going to approve it or not based on all the information you had. If you either approve or turn down an application, of course, you have to provide reasons for doing so. I mean, if you don't have good reasons to turn it down, right, I mean, somebody's going to appeal and try to explain to the appeal board why they should get it, or vice versa. So we always have to have, that's why we try to have our reasons or the decisions that we bring, based as close as it is to what the policy is in your documents. And if sometimes things don't meet policy, we try to have those talks with people ahead of time of how, maybe what they can do to try to meet the policy, but, yeah, it's speculative because you'd have to deal with the application in front and the information presented. It's not automatic, but also if you turn it down, you of course have to provide reasons for doing so either way, right? Just like this one we're presenting in front of you, we have reasons there based on the bylaw and parcel sizes and all those sorts of things. So, but there is a policy, that they could apply and make that application based on the subdivision criteria, so.
Thank you. So follow up on, no, it's not follow up, one further point. If they had put a building, a house, a shop at somewhere on this current parcel and came back for a larger, would they have been eligible for a existing site expansion up to our 10 acres?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, well, yeah, so based on, you do have the different policy and criteria for vacant or existing farmyards. So if there was an established farmyard here and it was laid out and there was dugouts, tree shelter belts, shop buildings, corrals, a house, whatever, you would look at that time of what's there, and if it's a 7, 8, 9, or 10 acre, based on those existing yards, the maximum is 10 acres. Anything above that would require a waiver. But that's not the situation in front of you dealer. You're dealing with the vacant parcel that's been there since 2018 and it's still sitting there vacant, so.
Okay, thank you. So the council on this then, got a lot of good answers there. My philosophy on it is I think we could, I'm all right with it being bigger. I am adamantly opposed to a resplit though. That's something I don't want. But it's like, well, I own this chunk of land in the corner, let's say, and I want my house, but it's actually kind of close to all the other things. I can't build it out the way I want. So I haven't put up my house yet. And because I haven't put up my house yet, I'm not eligible for enlarging it or my shop or whatever I want to do. So really tough. I think it's really tough for each one to make their own decision on it. Well, maybe it isn't. For me, it is, because I'd like to grant it on that basis that hey, I didn't start building because I can't put my house half over the property line and move it or right up against it or my shop. But also adamantly against the resplit. Thank you.
But acknowledging we can't caveat that at this time. That's a discussion for another day. Go ahead, Mark.
Just to respond to Councillor Van Essen, the rationale for expanding this has nothing to do, there's no indication that the owner is planning on building or developing or anything. And it's sat vacant for the past 8 years, I understand. The only reason was to do with LNID pipeline right away. So there's no discussion about expanding or whatever. So I think big picture for us, I would go with the recommendation not to approve this, just to avoid future down the road. Down the road, if the property owner is wanting to build or whatever, they could come in and then present that. This is why I want to expand. This is the rationale. But right now, the information we have today, the only reason they are expanding this is to deal with LNID's pipeline. That's it. There's no discussion about building a home or it's too close to this. So that's where I would kind of wonder. But
Go ahead, John. Oh, sorry. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and maybe just for some additional information to clarify in the LID, the LID comments you don't see in your package because they just came in like 3 days. I think it was on Monday. They just came in, so it is added to the updated resolution here. But on the LID comments, they have their typical requests for payment of outstanding irrigation fees, the rearrangement of acres on the parcel, entering a water agreement, alteration of distant works and fees for that, whatever. And then the last point they have are setback requirements. Any future permanent structures such as buildings with footings, pilings, foundations, septic tanks, barns, shops, silage, whatever, must meet the minimum setback distance of 30 meters from the center line of the pipeline, is what they have in their letter, which as we reviewed earlier, they don't have anything to enforce on that, and the county, as you mentioned, doesn't have that in the bylaw, in the current bylaw anymore, that, so. But,
So John had something, and I believe Kevin. Did you want to make a motion, Eric, or were you comfortable? Or you
No,
just,
I'm
you were
willing to
just-
let that discussion run out.
Okay, John and then Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the circumstances of this and looking at the potential, it's like, okay, if they'd built there, would it actually qualify for the 10 acres? I see that kind of being a bit of a what ifs and a moot point, because if they developed these 3 acres and then came back to us and asked to expand it to 7, the rule for the 10 acres wouldn't apply anyway, because the rule around the 10 acres is based off of what is actually existing there. So there would actually have to be development on 2 separate parcels for them to expand it out to 10 acres. So I kind of look at that as that's trying to pound a square peg into a round hole on this. And I'm all for giving people as large a parcel as they possibly can, especially on these dry corners, because appreciating that, you know, when you're trying to build square buildings into a triangle, you do end up with potential setback concerns, and making sure that your building fits within the property with the setbacks that we have. But I don't see, you know, any merit in moving forward with approving this.
Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question was the same as Eric there about the resplit, and so I get that all now. My question actually is for you, Eric. Like, so the resplit is, if maybe I'm missing something, what would hinder you not wanting the resplit?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councillor Slump. So that's just a historical thing that when we worked on bylaws and that is like, what do we want the county to look like? And that, I guess I hold the value of that we're not littered with multiple acreages everywhere, and then the density goes up, and all the things that come along with that. At that point, then it's like, hey, we got to look at group country residential or something like that, where it's designated for a higher population area. This is like, hey, hypothetically, somebody wants to put their retirement acreage up or their farmyard kind of thing, low intensity use. So, thank you.
I just want to add something, Council. So in the land use bylaw for country residential uses on a rural agricultural parcel where there is existing development, a major consideration at the time would be existing development, like you said, so those accessory buildings, the building, but it's also really critical in determining the maximum parcel size does not include any cultivated farmland, pasture land or grazing, any land suitable for agricultural production. So like Councillor Kurbis said, their development would be contemplated on the 2.99 acres parcel that exists today. It is Safety Codes Act requirement that their sanitary mound would have to exist on that title parcel. So the main components of their development would be on their title.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then the request is before us. They're asking us to, it is currently irrigated, correct? Part of the pivot circle?
of what they're looking to subdivide?
Yes.
It appears to be, yes.
Thank you.
Somebody's got to rip the Band-Aid off, so. I'd like to move that subdivision application 2025-0-184 be refused for approval for the reasons
Do you
as.
want to just move it and then defeat it, though? Do you want to make it negative?
I think we have to, don't we, for appeal purposes?
On subdivision, you
We
should.
We should move refusal?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That was my understanding, that's why, yeah, because I think we went through that before, but yeah. Okay, so, I would like to move that be refused for approval as reasons outlined in the draft resolution.
Okay, thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0-184 be refused for approval for the reasons outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? So I'll call the question for the refusal of subdivision application 2025-0-184. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to kind of conclude, being that had lots of questions on it, that being too many what-ifs and unknowns and what's currently in front of us, I don't think we can support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2025-0-184 be refused for approval for the reasons as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That carries. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Caitlin. It takes us to 10 o'clock. Why don't we take a short 10-minute recess and we'll Ready when you are, Candace? Okay, thank you, Candace. We'll reconvene our public meeting, move down on our agendas to item E, public hearings. We have one public hearing for today. Public hearing for bylaw 25-029. I would ask that we recess the regular meeting. We are here today to hold a public hearing for bylaw 25-029, amendment to the land use bylaw to amend Part 1 administrative relating to development permit procedures. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing. Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion to open public hearing.
Eric has moved to open the public hearing for bylaw 25-029. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. The public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. Public hearing for bylaw 25-029 is now officially open. I will now ask for a review of the nature of the hearing and an overview of what is being proposed. Kaylin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So bylaw 25-029 is an amendment to our land use bylaw to amend Part 1, the administrative section relating to the development permit procedures for public notification. So the Lethbridge County, we issue development permits in accordance with the Part 1 administrative section. And so development permits are specifically issued only on Tuesdays in relation to the date of the newspaper because that is our form of public notification. This method ensures that we're compliant with the Municipal Government Act, but it does lead to significant operational delays because we do have to submit to the newspaper the week prior to get it in the newspaper for the Tuesday. It's leading anywhere from a week to a week and a half in issuing a development permit for our ratepayers. So to align ourselves with modern planning practices and development permit processes with other municipalities, we are proposing to amend Part 1, Section 37 to relate the notifications directly to the county website, which we were always issuing our development permit decisions on the county website, just doing that live so that every time my development team makes a decision, it will be posted on the county website. All other forms of public notification will continue. So that other form is mail-out notices to those adjacent affected landowners. They will continue to receive those. And we will continue to put a newspaper ad in. It'll be a de facto newspaper ad just saying, check into what development permit decisions were made this week and refer people to the website. So these administrative efficiencies will lead to permit decisions being issued quicker and make information more readily available to just all county residents. And that being said, we have faced challenges in getting public notifications out in the last few years because of postal strikes. So we have included amendments that consider alternative notification methods if a postal strike was ever to occur again. And I think that is it. The recommendation before you is to pass second and third reading, and we would implement the changes in how we issue permits immediately so it has an impact on the spring processing season. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylin. This is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points. We ask that you refrain from asking questions to council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. Presentations to council will start with the applicant who has made a submission, followed by any other persons wishing to comment on the proposal. Please keep your comments to the point. After each speaker, members of council will be permitted to ask questions of the presenter to clarify any details. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. Each speaker will be allotted up to 10 minutes. Additional time may be granted at the discretion of council. With that, I would ask if there is anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw. I would ask again, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? And for a third and final time, I would ask if there is anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw. If there is nothing further, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Mark?
I would move to close the public hearing.
Mark has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 25-029. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Oh, sorry. Did you? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one sort of clarification question. All of this is just really around the newspaper being the trigger versus the website, so it just smooths out. So, as you said, and I think I understood that, we're still gonna advertise in the newspaper, but it's just not the trigger point as to when the time starts ticking.
Thank you, Councillor Kurbis, through Mr. Chairman. So right now, we post in the newspaper every permit decision we make on a Tuesday, which is administrative really heavy to prepare that list and document when everybody goes in the newspaper. So going forward, the newspaper will be a generic ad that development permits have been issued by Lethbridge County and refer them to the website. The list will be provided on the website to trigger that public notification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, Mark has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 25-029. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We can then resume our public meeting at 10:15 a.m. this morning. Is there any further questions or discussion? I've got Kevin and Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was, I didn't get clarity out of that answer. So are we can still post them online to start our time, but every week we're still gonna say what decisions were made and have the description in there, or it's only gonna be this generic ad you mentioned that, hey, we made some decisions, go online to go find them.
Thank you, Councillor Van Essen, through Mr. Chair. So you're correct with your second option. I will reiterate, the website will be our trigger for making development decisions every day. We will post live with all the permit information that you see currently presented. And the newspaper will be issued every week just to update people, development permits been made, and refer to the website. We will not detail out every development permit in the newspaper.
You good for now, or you want?
Yeah.
Face good. Yeah. Kevin?
Well, I was just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna move, second reading on bylaw 25-029. Anything we can do to speed up the process, I think is good. I understand that some people will find it hard to get online to go and look at it, but you are still, putting out the letters to the people in the area,
Yes.
right? Okay, thanks. Then, yeah, I'd move, second reading.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved that bylaw 25-029 be read for a second time. Is there any discussion? Oh, sorry, Lauren. Go, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to that point, do we have any idea of the number of people who would actually go onto the web to find out this stuff or look about a permit? And because I'm just wondering this, how many people don't have access to the internet or don't have access? Will there be some group of people who are influenced by the decision of today if it was passed?
Thank you, Councillor Hickey, through Chairman Campbell. So there is also other means to getting the development information. I understand our PDF that is listed on the county website does get accessed quite a bit. People do generally like Control F it to search their address and see what projects have happened in their proximity. People are still getting the mail out notices for any waivers or discretionary decisions. And then we can continue to post the development permit decisions here in the county office in that bulletin board. If I ever got a call concerning the newspaper ad, I definitely could create means for them to access it if it was a concern.
Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Typically, when you look in the paper there, you'll always see a nice big ad all the time. Will the county still run, something substantial to kind of acknowledge to check the website out?
Yes, so that is exactly the ad we will be running, is to check out the website. The development permit decisions have been made to refer them to that active list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be idea thought that that chart that we get in the email of the this is what I approved this week, if that gets attached into the ad? And the logic behind this is if I was probably 100% on like, hey, let's just go full steam ahead. But if I see the phone calls I've gotten over our franchise fee, hey, I saw it in the paper. Hey, I saw it in the paper. What are you doing? There's still higher uptake than I realized. I'm going to just put it that way. Higher. So this would not require, my request is not a full description, on and on, like the previous, this is all what we approved. What we have here, development permit number, address, land description, the short description, and decision date or something, and I don't know, I'm just trying to come up with a simple way to still keep the awareness up.
Thank you, Councillor Van Essen. If that is,
May I?
yeah, go ahead.
I would suggest that's not simple. I think that now we are convoluting it more, because now if you're issuing every day, you are always going to be chasing it. You don't have a clean list of a cutoff date where you are listing X amount. If the one gets published on the Monday or the Tuesday online and is approved, it's always gonna be a chase for administration to get it right. It's a moving target now because we don't have a deadline. And I think it actually makes it more cumbersome for administration to chase that. And to your point around the franchise fees, the franchise fee isn't a development permit.
Correct.
A development permit, and I think you get a lot of tire kicking on development permits, but it's largely from people that aren't impacted. And as long as my biggest concern is addressing the people that are impacted, and I would suggest that a recent example would be is the decision around the development adjacent to Stafford Landing, where we received no comments over something that I think people did receive the information and were contacted as adjacent landowners, and we received no comments. I do see it both ways. I think we need to take a step forward. I think when you go, in my case, to the post office in Coaldale and you see how many Sunny Souths are just left laying there, I think for some people it's important. I think people want to know what's happening in the county, but I think we have the avenues to do that. So I applaud you for this, and I think it's the right move.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would agree. I think that this whole discussion is going to move our residents forward and assist them in understanding. I mean, the reality is, majority of things are going online. I mean, there's no telephone books. The paper's gone. Few people, I read the paper, good for me. But I think it's going to help people, educate them and get them moved over to using that and going online and being comfortable doing that. And if they have any questions, come to the office, come into the office. But I think to hold it back for a handful of people, at some point we have to move forward. So, I think your team's done a great job. I think this is a great step for us moving forward as a county, and I think it moves us into the next century and where the whole world's going. So I think that's the way we should keep going. Thank you.
Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo the thoughts that Councillor Sarah said. This is really about modernizing and flowing the process, and yes, there are people, I'm sure, that will miss reading the development permits, but anybody that's actually that affected because they're adjacent landowners, they get the notice, so they have the ability. The people most impacted already have more than ample opportunity to know that something is going on and to comment on it. And for those people that are, just looking to see what's happening and keeping their thumb on the pulse of the community, they have the ability to go online and look. So I think it's something that will definitely do our planning department a good service to reduce the amount of effort they have to do for such a task that is required, but there's a better way to do it.
Thank you, John. Any other comments? Sorry, Trevor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to answer Councillor Hickey's question, in the last month, our website received 10,000 views, so it's just over 100 views per day. And of those 10,000 views, it was approximately 4,800 unique individuals. The only caution I would provide is we cannot distinguish whether those were people inside this building who might have been using the website for work purposes or residents, but 10,000 views a month based on the last month.
Kevin has moved second reading of Bylaw 25-029. Again, is there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that Bylaw 25-029 be read a third time.
Thank you, John. John has moved that Bylaw 25-029 be read for a third time. Is there any further discussion or questions? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, John. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
I will now shift in our agendas. If we move down administration F2, F2.3, we have a couple guests in chambers, so I will move to F2.3, fire services invoice waiver request. Candace?
Good morning, Council. We've received a written request from Jackie and Ron Hofsink seeking reconsideration of an invoice issued for fire services related to a grass fire that occurred on September 21st, 2025. The fire originated within an Alberta transportation right-of-way and subsequently spread onto the adjacent lands owned by Mr. and Mrs. Hofsink. Fire response services were provided by the county. Alberta Transportation was invoiced for the fire response and has advised that it will assume responsibility for 5% of the total cost, which amounts to $216.94. The remaining balance of the invoice was issued to the affected landowners in accordance with the established cost recovery practices in the county fire bylaw. Mr. and Mrs. Hofsink have requested that the remaining portion of the invoice be waived. In support of their request, they have indicated that they did not start the fire, they did not report the fire, and they were not aware of the fire until the following morning. They further indicated that the fire resulted in limited impact, primarily affecting the stubble ground cover, and they believe the fire was likely caused by an unidentified individual traveling along Highway 845. The applicants indicated that where responsible parties cannot be identified, the costs associated with emergency response service should be borne collectively by the taxpayers. So they are requesting that we waive the invoice in the amount of $4,121.81.
Thank you, Candace. Just a couple of notes. I wanted to just acknowledge our Director of Emergency Services. I know Heath has worked extensively on this with the province and with Mr. and Mrs. Hofsink. Just want to acknowledge that Heath couldn't be here today, dealing with some family medical issues, so just wishing our best to Heath, and our thoughts are with him and his wife today. On this particular item, I think I've been very adamant in my belief that in instances where we see these requests for waivers that we stick to the policy. However, today I will very vocally support the fact that I believe we should waive the fire services invoice number 19444. I think this is established, or sorry, this is shown that there's obviously a gap, and that to no fault of Mr. and Mrs. Hofsink, they received this bill. I feel very strongly in this, and I just wanted to get that out to lead the conversation, but obviously open to your thoughts and how you would like to proceed. Thank you. I would open it up for any discussion or questions. Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sat through numerous of these and have often struggled with putting the bill to the resident when it looks like there's negligible of their cause, and this one being the same. But I think the argument on that it's you know what, the taxpayer didn't cover it at a provincial level, so I'd like to see that we do it at a local level.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question on how the 5% was arrived at. Do you have any idea on that?
Alberta Transportation indicated that they're only paying 5% is because 5% of the fire was only on Alberta Transportation right of way. The majority of the fire was on the adjacent lands.
Do you want to comment on that, Cole?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was very arbitrary. I mean, we had talked about flyover. Ultimately, I think it's somewhat irrelevant. That's what we were told that AT would pay, and there was no negotiation or discussion there on that amount. And I'm not saying that I think their hands are tied by policy as well on how they approach that. Whatever it was, we weren't able to make any traction there. That is where the fire originated, though. And so these are really challenging, and I know both Heath and I struggled with this one, and I didn't spend the time with it that he did. He kind of ran it to ground, but if it wasn't Alberta Transportation and it was a different property, typically what would happen is that's where those costs would be borne. It would go through their insurance would work with whoever those adjacent insurers are, whatever, to reach a settlement. But because it's the province, those provisions are just different. I get that that's not the individual, but that is where the fire started. If we have this cross-jurisdictionally with other municipalities, and I think this is an important consideration, like, we have had it before where we had a fire start in one of our right-of-ways that extended into Vulcan County, and we bore the costs for that fire. And then we had to work with and try and identify who and where that fire started from to collect. And so in those situations, it is borne by the taxpayer because it is unidentified, and we take that on. It would be our expectation that Alberta Transportation would do the same, and they didn't in this situation, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we first started looking at this and passing the cost of fire suppression onto the landowners, the original intention of it, in my mind at that point, was passing the cost to responsible landowners, meaning if the fire originated on the property, then that would be the individual that the fire suppression charges would have been sent to. When I first saw this and was looking at the background, I actually pulled up what our bylaw says, and our bylaw doesn't quite read like that. Our bylaw actually, yeah, there we go. Candace has got it up. It has the ability to, I think it says or, right? It says affected landowners or.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right section here. Oh my goodness.
At any rate, you know, just to carry on with my comments, I think that there's a potential gap and a revisit on our bylaws that may be necessary, because that, the way it is worded, we have the ability right now to put fire suppression charges onto just property owners of adjacent land or affected, whether or not they were responsible for the fire. So under these circumstances, I think an exception is actually in order, and I think that we should take a revisit of our bylaws to make sure that we cover in those little gaps and loopholes in the program.
Thank you, John. Any other discussion? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in an instance of, let's say, a vehicle fire that happens, crosses the ditch, goes into a field, does the person's insurance cover that then? How does that typically cover?
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Ankerman. It depends on the situation and the insurance that they carry. These get really complicated. We've had it before where that happened. It was due to negligence on the road. There were reports. We were able to collect on that situation that occurred last year. That was the large grass fire that was cross-jurisdictionally. But where these are challenging, and I don't have an answer for this, I would just ask the question, is, and maybe this is a separate conversation from what we're addressing today and becomes a bylaw conversation if that's the will of council. If this was a large event, AT didn't take responsibility, and this affects 40 homes. This is a multi-million-dollar response. The county is not equipped to bear that on the taxpayer, to say we're not gonna, nobody needs to contact their insurance in this situation. And so, you know, doing kind of a, what is the intention and the application of this decision in these other situations where it would be applied? I don't have an answer to that. I don't know how we would navigate that unless the county is going to carry a large reserve to offset those things. We are on a fee for service. Yes, we have budget for fire, but it is typically, we try and offset as much of that expenditure on the revenue side through Alberta Transportation, and then subsequently through the insurer. So I wish Heath was here. He would have some more specific answers for you. I think that that's just an important question that we need to ask as part of this. Maybe it's not part of this specific report, but it will absolutely, if it's not, is going to be part of the bylaw discussion on how that gets applied.
Cool. Good, Mark.
Yeah, when I first read this, I kind of went, oh, here we go again. And, you know, we go on autopilot as council. We don't, you know, we generally don't accept these. But this one really caught my eye. I thought the fact that the fire was started outside, went onto the customer's, or their, you know, the resident's property, it's out of their control. And, you know, we could say, well, do you have insurance? Well, you shouldn't have to be penalized with your insurance rates going up because something that happened outside your property had nothing to do with you. So I would support waiving this fee for this one time. I think it's been a matter of time before one of these hit our desk, so I'm quite comfortable, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? I would entertain a motion if someone, Mark?
I would move that we waive the invoice number 19444 in the amount of $4,121.81.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the county council waive fire services invoice number 19444 in the amount of $4,121.81. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving back up now, F21, Oldman Watershed Council funding request.
If I may, thank you very much.
Pardon? Oh, did I miss another one too? Oh, we're gonna go right back, eh? Sorry, Candace. F1.1, Bylaw 26-002, Municipal Assessor Bylaw. Sorry, Candace. I was on autopilot.
You can't object
Morning, Haley.
Good morning. Good morning, council. This is to present Bylaw 26002, the Municipal Assessor Bylaw for consideration. This bylaw establishes the position of the municipal assessor for Lethbridge County and formally appoints a new municipal assessor. So this action is required due to the upcoming retirement of our current assessor and council's previous approval of the contract with Benchmark to provide assessment services to the county. So this is for council's consideration, and it would update to appoint Lance Wayloggy from Benchmark Assessment Consultant as the municipal assessor for Lethbridge County.
Thank you, Haley. That'll open up to council for any questions. John?
No questions, because this is a fairly straightforward administration issue to make sure that we're in compliance. So I would like to move that bylaw 26-002, municipal assessor bylaw, be read a first time.
Thank you, John. John has moved that bylaw 26-002, municipal assessor bylaw, be read for a first time. Is there any discussion? I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Second reading. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that bylaw 26-002, municipal assessor bylaw, be read a second time.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved that bylaw 26-002, municipal assessor bylaw, be read for a second time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And consideration of third reading of bylaw 26-002. Mark?
The council consider third reading of bylaw 26-002, municipal assessors bylaw.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the council consider third reading of bylaw 26-002, the municipal assessor bylaw. Is there any discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That is unanimous. We move to third reading. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bylaw 26-002, municipal assessor bylaw, be read a third time.
Thank you, Tony. Tony has moved that bylaw 26-002, the municipal assessor bylaw, be read for a third time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. F21, Oldman Watershed Council funding request. Hi, Candace.
Hello again, Council. The Oldman Watershed Council has requested continued financial support for their fiscal year, April 2025 to March 2026. The request is based on a per capita contribution of 49 cents per resident. Their letter references a population of 10,784. Our most recent federal census is 10,120. So based on that census number, the total contribution would be $4,955. The Oldman Watershed Council is a nonprofit organization focused on improving the health and sustainability of the Oldman Watershed through collaborative science-based initiatives. In this past year, the OWC activities included shoreline restoration, agricultural producer partnerships, biomonitoring programs, agricultural literacy initiatives, and community engagement events. Their organization reports significant regional economic impacts, environmental improvements, and increased public awareness. We are recommending that council approve funding to the Oldman Watershed Council in the amount of $4,959, calculated at a rate of 49 cents per resident, based on that 10,122 resident number.
Thank you, Candace. Open up to council for any questions or direction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I definitely see the benefit in this program, and it is something that we've contributed to going on now 21 years. And the health of that watershed is of utmost importance to all of us that live along the Oldman River. So I would like to move that County Council approve the funding request from the Oldman Watershed Council in the amount of $4,959, which calculated a rate of 49 cents per resident based on the population of 10,120 residents.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation. Is there any further discussion? I'll say it one more time. John has moved that County Council approve the funding request from the Oldman Watershed Council in the amount of $4,959, calculated at a rate of 49 cents per resident based on a population of 10,120 residents. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And moving down, F2.2, the rescission of bylaw number 965, Firearm Control Bylaw. Candace.
This is another report Heath was going to bring forward. So this is the Fire Control Bylaw number 965, was adopted in 1991 to prohibit the discharge of guns or other firearms with designated special control areas of the Lethbridge County, including hamlets, parks, golf courses, and residential subdivisions. Since its enactment, the legislative framework governing firearms has evolved significantly, with firearms regulation now clearly established as a federal and provincial responsibility. Recent amendments to the Alberta Municipal Government Act restrict municipal authority to regulate firearms unless expressly authorized by the province. So since adoption, firearms regulation has become more comprehensively addressed through federal and provincial statutes. We just reviewed this bylaw and determined enforcement may result in regulatory overlap and potential jurisdictional conflict. So we're recommending that council rescind bylaw 965, Firearm Control Bylaw, in its entirety.
Thank you, Candace. Any questions from council? Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that council rescind bylaw 965, Firearm Control Bylaw in its entity.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved that council rescind bylaw number 965, the Firearm Control Bylaw in its entirety. Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That carries.
Are we getting a sheriff now? We don't have anybody to control it.
Have you found a bylaw that says you can't hitch your horse to a light?
Moving down, correspondence. We have 5 items of correspondence before us today. I'll start at item 1, the Alberta Care Spring Seminar. So before you, you have the brochure, the itinerary, and a registration for the Alberta Care Spring Seminar 2026 in Brooks, Alberta. For your reading pleasure. Go ahead, John.
I have some interest in attending this, as I'm the chair of the Regional Waste Committee. And actually, I was having this discussion with another member of the Waste Committee, and from another jurisdiction. And the question was, funding for this, would this come from the municipality or from the Waste Commission? And maybe that's a question for administration.
Sorry.
I know how some members feel about that, but I wonder if we could get some direction from administration whether this has happened in the past.
Go ahead.
I mean, if council supports it here, it's county, and it would have to be supported by the commission if the commission's gonna fund it. So that would have to be a resolution of the commission.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. So
If you want council to support it and council pay for it, I would suggest that we deal with it today. If you are suggesting that the commission deals with it, I think that would be a direction from the commission, and the commission would reimburse. Is that fair, Cole?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm in the same position I was yesterday in the same thought process. We're not sure.
Okay. Okay, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, well, there is a cost because there's travel to Brooks and there would be hotel accommodations and
To register and all.
and the registration fee, so.
We're okay to move on for now then?
Well, in the interest of sort of, yeah, we can move on. This is something I'd like to attend, but I mean, it's not fair.
Okay. Next item, Alberta Sugar Beet Growers Annual General Meeting. We are pleased to, dear industry partners and stakeholders, we are pleased to invite you to ASBG's upcoming annual general meeting, bringing together members of the sugar beet industry for a full day of connection, learning, and collaboration. Registration closes February 27th, 2026, and the actual general meeting is the 4th of March at the Sandman Hotel here in Lethbridge. If you have any interest in attending the annual general meeting of the ASBG, I'm sure we could arrange to make that happen before February 27th. Item 3, Chinook Arch Library Board Report, December 2025. So before you have the board report. Kevin, is there anything you would like to add, as I know that you are the new appointee? Okay. Moving down, item 4, Willow Creek Regional Waste Management Services Commission Waste to Energy Invitation to Participate. Some of these acronyms are wild. This is nuts. WCRWMSC. So before you have their invitation to participate in the waste project, Cole, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
No, Mr. Chairman. Right, I apologize. I've been away this week till today, and Ryan and I had discussed, and he's got other engagements today, so we didn't have a chance to touch base specifically on this. I think our position, for the most part, stays the same, where if somebody wants to do something, they can come and work with us, but I don't know what our role is.
Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that this invitation is probably better served being dealt with through the Waste Commission rather than us directly, because we have that in place with our municipal partners for a reason, and that's probably where it should be directed.
Is that agreeable, Candace, that we direct that there?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. And item 5, South Crow Southern Alberta Economic Summit. Formally invited to RSVP for this year's Southern Alberta Economic Summit, proudly hosted by South Crow and our partnering agencies. So Peter has sent out this invitation. The link is through Eventbrite to the actual.
The date is March 25th. I'm not sure why it's not on here anywhere.
Wednesday, March 25th from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the Lethbridge Trade and Convention Center. Tickets are $80, it looks like, Candace, is that right? So if you have interest in attending that, again, we can facilitate that. And if there's nothing else, I believe that brings us to the end of our correspondence. Then to new business, item H. Sorry, Lauren, before you stepped in, we did add 2 items for your discussion, or for you to bring forward to council. I believe one was around signage, and the second item for potential travel out of the county. And I would open the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have been noticing quite a few ads from the Alberta government about a Blackfoot recognition on signage in your municipalities. They do pay for some of it. I'm not sure how much they pay for. Seeing as there are neighbors, I just wondered if it would be good to look into the possibility of getting a grant from the government. Go ahead.
I can offer some insight on that because it's Community Futures that are actually doing the administration on that. So the Blackfoot signage program is one that the Blackfoot Confederation will contribute up to $2,000 for any individual sign to put to translate our information into Blackfoot. And the process is when you put in a request, they send it to the elders. The elders have a discussion and talk about what would be the appropriate reiteration in Blackfoot, and then they come with a couple different suggestions to review, and then if everybody's happy with it, then there is then you can move forward with signing, and that portion of the invoice would be paid through Community Futures, but on behalf of the Blackfoot Confederation.
So I just brought it forward to see if we'd be interested in looking into that.
Yeah, go ahead, Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not specific to the Blackfoot naming, but I do know we've discussed for years around upgrading and replacing a lot of our signs that are faded and outdated. We did not prioritize it in this year's budget, just due to competing priorities, and we want to get a little further along with a few things under branding and everything else. But if council's open to it, what I would suggest is maybe we park it for this fiscal year. The grant is only up to $2,000. Trevor just sent me some things here. So it's only up to $2,000, which is not a lot of money in the context of upgrading our signs, but we flag it for consideration when we do move to upgrade those signs. And that could be next year, it could be the year after. I'm not sure yet until we have some of those council conversations through budget, but would that be amenable to council and we just don't lose sight of it for those discussions?
Yeah, thank you, Cole. I actually appreciate that because when this project has been ongoing for the last 2.5 years, and the one challenge that I was always struggling with is, given the number of signs that we have within Lethbridge County and the small amount of the grant, where do you actually make that work? And because if we were to undertake something like that, even if we look at all of our county signs, this would be something that we would have to put on a significant number, and the amount of the grant it really wouldn't even go so far as to take care of one sign.
And my second one was just a request to travel out of our municipality for a conference for Green Acres Foundation. It is in St. John's, Newfoundland on April 19th to the 23rd.
Okay. Do we need a motion, or how do we handle that?
It is 100% paid by Green Acres.
Paid by Green Acres, okay. Do you need anything, Candace? Yep, sure. Would someone like to make that motion? Go ahead, John.
Thank you. I'd like to move to give authorization to Councillor Lauren Hickey to travel to St. John's, Newfoundland for the Green Acres Foundation Convention.
Any discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Thank you.
there anything else to be addressed in the public session of our meeting this morning? Anything I've missed? If not, brings us to item I, closed session. We have 3 items before us today: a land disposition, ATIA Section 30, rescinding policy, ATIA Section 29, advice from officials, and our CAO report, ATIA Section 19, 20, 28, and 29. Would entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Mark? Mark has moved
Move
to enter
to
a closed
move it.
session at Opposed? That is carried. Pertaining to our closed session items, item 1, I believe there is a motion coming out of closed. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that council approve declaring Plan 6481 DI Block 1, Lot 7 as surplus and direct administration to proceed with the public sale of the property.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved that council approve declaring Plan 6481 DI Block 1, Lot 7 as surplus and direct administration to proceed with public sale of the property. Is there any further discussion? Or is that L, I'm assuming? Is it DL? DI? Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And item 2, rescind policy. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that council rescind policy 310, approach construction guidelines.
Thank you, John. John has moved that council rescind policy 310, approach construction guidelines. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Is there anything further? John?
Motion to adjourn?
John has moved to adjourn this morning at 11:57 a.m. If there's no discussion, call the question. Those in favor?